りおしまい。
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
And your host on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. On this episode, as usual, we're talking about Dragon Ball, episode 86. Then there were 8. Or in the Japanese, it is decided, the 8 warriors. If you couldn't tell, I'm a little stuffed up. There's some pretty good allergies where we're at. It's springtime. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. But before we get started, I do want to mention, if you like what you hear, please give us a like, subscribe. We upload on Mondays and Thursdays to YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays to Rumble. So make sure you give us a subscribe. Also, and I actually haven't talked to you about this yet, Brock, but I've had some requests that we go on to Spotify as well.
I think that's a good idea. I think we should get it all transferred over there so we can we've talked about hosting an RSS feed before to just to make it more accessible. Um, so that's definitely something to look forward to.
Absolutely. So that would be on the iStore as well. I don't know how Apple works.
Probably.
Oh, okay. You can do free stuff there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It just getting everything. Apple makes it harder to get things hosted than just having an RSS feed.
Ah, okay. Anyway, so look forward to that. Other than that, Brock, do you have any housekeeping, other things to say?
No, nothing outside of the episode.
All right, well, let's go ahead then and get started. So the first thing we see is Goku squares off with Chappa O, or in the English, King Chappa, easily matching his strength and speed. Chappa O then uses his 8-hand punch, telling Goku that defeat is part of training. Goku blocks his attack and launches himself into the air, tricking Chappa O and the onlookers into thinking that he's put himself into a vulnerable position. When he propels himself downward towards his opponent, he uses his breath to break his fall, tricking Chappa O and knocking him out of the ring. So just in this little part, we see a couple things I can already appreciate. I think you might point them out as well. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, easily the 8-handed punch and Goku knowing that defeat is part of training. It's pretty funny. First thing is the name of this episode is then there were 8, right? And so he comes at him with this 8-handed punch. Um it's funny also that it's called then there were 8 because we don't actually see the 8 in this episode. Not until the next episode do we see all 8 of them. So,
Well, the naming convention sticks. At least they're consistent with not with being one episode behind each time.
yeah. It's even though you can tell that it's based on things that don't happen in the episode though, because it would have been just as easy to name this episode something like "The finalists have been chosen" or something like that. But specifically calling out the 8 of them and saying like, "Then there were 8," as if or "the 8 warriors" when we don't see the 8 warriors. It's like anyway. So
Yeah, I
he's got
mean,
this
we
eight-handed
completely
punch.
missed two of them. But yeah, the eight hand punch. But I mean, even before that, he's kind of Choppa O is built up as a former champion who won without anyone touching him, right? So Goku immediately just breaks that illusion
Oh
right
yeah.
there and just gives him a quick punch, not to like
Just to
kill him or
show
anything, but just be like, okay,
you
well,
can be punched.
now it's happened. Your streak is ruined.
Well, by hitting him one time, it's like he establishes himself as above everything that he's done so far, right?
Yes.
So Goku's saying, "I am above the tournament that you fought last time by being faster than everybody that you fought in that last tournament." And so it is good that it's established that way because that's the irony of what Choppa O says, which is he says that defeat is part of your training, and it's like part of Choppa O's training here is defeat at the hands of a child.
Yeah, and it's almost what do I want to say? Projection in a way for Choppa O.
Right.
But I also like that there in the melee of it when the eight-handed punch is going, Goku sweeps his feet and says you've left your feet completely unguarded, right? And it's to say that the eight-hand punch, or let's say even more specifically, it's the idea of subordinating oneself to the tournament. And Goku's already done that last time. So he's way beyond it.
That's what I was wanting to say. The differentiation of the upper and lower half of the body being that as well, with what we've learned in this past arc for Goku, where he's been able to build up his spirit. And that's what it was really
Yeah.
about post the tournament is him building that spirit. He goes into the underworld. We talked about at the end of the stuff that went on with Pilaf, the upper and lower half, and sort of how
Yes.
that manifests. For instance, how Grandpa Gohan launches himself low at him the first time they fight. He glides along the ground and attacks him from below, right? There's this imagery of the lower half and how it's more of your what centers you, your spirit, your uh the way you are versus what you do, right? You think of your
Well,
hands going out
in the
and
low
affecting
too
things.
is that integration of um that bestial side because that's also Goku's tail, right?
Right.
And so
The unconscious part of
that's
you.
something Champa O has no conceptualization of that. He's subordinated himself to the idea of the tournament, and it's proven so that spirit is proven so formidable against other modes of being in the tournament that the first time he fought, he was untouchable. And now Goku here has integrated both upper and lower half such that he immediately sees the weakness, takes it out, and then they have another little sparring
Well, yeah, I
part.
want to point out too that if we're talking about strengthening the lower half, of course, do need to tie it into Goku's goal of strengthening his tail after he learns his lesson. It's like what he
Yes.
learns from that encounter with his grandfather is that you need to strengthen your tail, and it's sort of representative of that lower half, right? And so, and we've seen Goku trip people with his tail before, and it's more along those lines of remember whenever Goku went into monkey technique in the last tournament,
Yes.
it's
It's
like
tapping
that
into see that's Goku almost unconsciously tapping into his lower half, where after this arc that he's been through,
exactly.
it's an exploration of the logos through the unknown that allows him to harness that power at will, more or less.
Right. So, and that's the thing. That's why I kind of wanted to point out before he's like a he's the Middle Eastern ascetic sort of manifestation in the same way that Namu was.
Oh, you're talking about Choppa.
Yeah. And so, but that's, I mean, other than Roshi and Goku, that's who would have won the last tournament. Would be, he would have won the tournament, right? I believe so. That Namu would have been, aside from
Yeah,
them, he would have been
I
the
see what you're
victor.
saying. And he's a master. He has it's good intentions. He's joining the tournament to begin with. He's not an ill aimed spirit or something like that. but at the same time, it's something that Goku has already easily mastered, right?
Right.
It is the subordination to the uh the order, right? And the super order that is the tournament.
So that's what I wanted to. That's a great way to tie it into the way that the fight ends, right? Where he launches himself in the air and then dives down at him. But the way that he defeats him is that he, with his breath, with his spirit, manipulates that maneuver, tricks him, and then knocks him out of the ring, right? Which is that's what Namu's signature thing was in this fight with Namu is he would
Hmm.
up into the air and then he'd do his cross chop down, right? And so Goku is
And
showing that
Goku
he's
caught,
above that
right?
by manipulating that with his spirit.
Hmm. And saying that he's able to manipulate himself in the hierarchy, even subordinating himself to the idea of it.
Right.
Yeah. And so we get Goku's amazing performance against Choppa. He knocks him out of the ring, and everyone is aghast. I think Krillin and Yamcha even they even have lines in the sub where they're like not really enthusiastic about fighting Goku at this point. Goku's like, I can't wait to fight in the ring with you guys, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even in the original translation as well, they said Krillin says to him, "You need to take it easy. You can't go all out like that on all of your opponents." And Goku says, "I would have killed him if I went all out. I can't wait till I can actually go all out like against you guys."
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's a
they're
good
sort of
thing to bring up.
uh
The insinuation of Goku's real the Goku's real ability to instantiate himself in the world is enough to kill, which is not heartening to Yamcha and Krillin. And so I guess we'll move on from there. It's a good spot. So following Goku's display against the former world champ, Roshi's confidence in himself is shaken. As he prepares to fight his own opponent, a beast man, he finds himself lost in thought about whether he can really defeat Goku. When the Beastman sees that he isn't being taken seriously, he rushes to attack Roshi. Roshi mistakes him for Goku in his distraction and immediately knocks him out cold. Afterward, we're treated to the first montage of preliminary victories for the Go crew. So, I think what we need to mention here just really is Jackie Chun, Roshi. Actually, there's no, yeah, Jackie Chun, what Jackie Chun slash Roshi, his thoughts here,
right.
and the way he's dealing with his position,
So
let's
yeah,
say.
this is his response to seeing what we just described. That Goku's ability to manipulate that understanding of hierarchy is so complex now that it has transcended the term world champion, and Roshi is the world champion. And so he's thinking about his status here, and he's going, "Well, what I
Well,
have that he
Roshi's
doesn't
not
have
the
is
world
my
champion.
status."
Jackie
Right,
Chun's the world champion. Roshi's the master, which are two tops of two different hierarchies, right?
right.
And he's kind of realized that Goku is fashioning a hierarchy above that he's starting to inhabit. And so Roshi's like, well, where is my place then? If at the top of these hierarchies Goku is already above me.
Yeah, not only that, but what place do I have in the hierarchy if he's occupying a space that's above quote unquote world champion?
Right. Number 1 under the heavens.
Yeah.
Remember, yeah. And I mean it's really here he's realizing that Goku is touched the heavens at the very least, if not breached them entirely.
And so yeah, he's thinking to himself that the one thing that he has that Goku doesn't have that is going to be a barrier is his status, right? He says, I have a name to think of, or I have a career to think of," something along those lines in the translation. And as he's thinking that, then the Beast Man takes offense to it. He says, "You're not taking me seriously," and rushes him. And so he just reacts as if it were Goku and obliterates him.
Yes. Well, it's to instantiate the being as such that Jackie Chun is, right, which is the actual instantiation of Roshi in the hierarchy that is eclipsed by the faults that Master Roshi actually has, that he has to inhabit, being denied that hermit style of being denied his true integration, which is here in Jackie Chun, right? So as such, he doesn't really it's almost ultra instinct. He doesn't really need to think about it, right? It's him acting out what he knows he should do, even though he in his mind is conflicting it, right? He's like, well, I just have to be that much better and still beat Goku. That's pretty much what he learns
Yeah,
in
he's
this
saying
instance.
that he has a responsibility to occupy that space if he is what he
His
knows he is, right?
his body,
And so it
his
acts it out.
unconscious,
Yeah,
let's say, acts out the answer to his question. That's a good way of saying it.
right. And it's I think it's a fitting setup for how, because we don't really know how strong he is. He said in the last episode that he had trained in secret.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means because we basically skipped 3 years, so we don't know what he's been doing all this time. We would assume that he's been doing what he normally does, which is attending to what he shouldn't be paying attention to rather than what he should, because that's sort of his hallmark thing. The training is part of it, and then whenever he's done training other people, he doesn't attend to himself. He always That's his blindness, right? He's
Right,
always
but
looking
it's
at porn, whatever.
I think the Baba instance gave him some motivation to
Right.
prepare for that, right?
And so we and it's I think it's called out in this episode later on as well that it seems that Roshi's been taking himself a bit more seriously. Especially later on. I'll just mention, like, there's a point later in the episode whenever they finally meet back up with Bulma and she says he's probably out just creeping on girls, and he calls her out on it. He says, "You would say that, wouldn't you?" And he defends himself sort
That's
of.
what I'm saying. The more he's able to be Jackie Chun, the more integrated he is, right?
Right.
It's when Roshi's being lecherous and things, it's because he's disintegrated with the fact that he has to deny himself that ability as a hermit and as a spiritual father to instantiate himself in the world the way Jackie Chun can. And so when he is Jackie Chun, he's more noble, he's more honorable, right? He doesn't fall prey to some of these things that he used to.
I guess what I'm saying is him training is him being Jackie Chun,
Yes.
because he's preparing for his instantiation as Jackie
You're
Chun.
right. And
So
so the more he's done that, I would say
exactly.
now even more than last tournament, he's able to even call out Bulma.
Right, it pushes back against the identity that's sort of formed out of the
This is
habitual
actually
shirking of responsibility.
right, and it actually it comes up over and over in this arc
Hmm.
because Roshi is a big character in this arc. Uh, I wouldn't say the first 21st Tenkaichi Budokai didn't have character development, but this one has a lot of it for a lot of different characters.
Yeah, and that's why we now have a rival for him, because it's
Yeah,
time.
it's time. Right, it's time for that. And so, I think the only thing left we have to talk about is the montage. They beat a bunch of guys, a bunch of randos.
That's it. There's two montages in this episode, so we get the first one this time. Everyone gets a quick victory, and then it just breaks afterwards.
Dun 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 dun. And then it comes back.
And when it comes back, I didn't put this in the breakdown, but the rest of the Go crew is trying to play games to win prizes.
Oh yeah, pointlessly.
Somewhat pointlessly, it seems. Before
Yeah.
we get into the other stuff, I'll see if you think there's anything significant about it. We've got Oolong trying to catch fish, and the net keeps breaking on him whenever he's trying to catch the fish. It seems like it's a game where you're supposed to carefully catch it and it doesn't break out of
It's rigged
something.
though.
And it seems like it's rigged carnival games. And then we
Yeah.
see that Launch is at a little, like, pea shooter shooting gallery and pulls out her actual gun, shoots the place up, and demands money.
I think the only thing there is to show how incompatible it is for the, let's say, masculinized feminine to exist in that environment in like a carnival setting. But I mean, that's just
But I
there's
don't
not
really
much
know if
there.
it's going for much.
Yeah.
I think about fish. I usually associate fish with certain symbology.
Well, I
And I
mean,
remember when Oolong was a fish and was caught easily by Goku, and
yeah,
here's Oolong trying to play a facsimile of that and catch a fish, and he
and he
can't do
can't.
it.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
I
only
mean,
thing I can think
it's
of it.
also you would also be able to guess that Oolong wouldn't be able to just because of the
How
idea of
Oolong
that
is.
fish meaning being that unconscious force. But as far as launch, I mean,
Well, Launch
the
is hyper conscious, right? She's her hair's golden. Like she is full on masculine manifestation, right? And so over too much, right? So she's hyper competent at the game that she's messing up. She's taking it too seriously and she's
and she
literally
doesn't even
blowing things up with a gun.
want it's yeah, okay, so you said conscious. I think competent would be a better thing because Oolong is incompetent,
Hmm.
Launch is competent, so competent, right, that the game is not a challenge for
But
her.
also, I said conscious because Oolong cannot, he can't reach the unconscious. He cannot gain the wisdom of the unconscious to elevate himself because he's a manifestation of Bulma's unconsciousness.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas Launch is a manifestation of consciousness, of Roshi's consciousness of the way that he is and his insufficiencies, because she always smacks him down. Her purpose seems to be as an anchor connected to that dynamic, to be a judge to Roshi, to
Well,
judge
it's the
him.
masculine form of the feminine, right? That's
Exactly.
the
So
selection
it's but that's conscious
and
versus
the
unconscious
femme
in the
fatale.
masculine
Yeah,
and
yeah,
feminine, right?
yeah.
And so she's a hyper conscious manifestation in the same way that she wanted to hijack the plane whenever she was up high, right? She's she wants to take control of things, wants to too much. She's overreaching, over
And she
outward.
wants money from it too.
Yeah.
Give me money. She doesn't want the stuffed bear because it's not a game to
She's
her.
playing a higher game, right?
Right, to show how and that's kind of what I was saying, to show how the that hyper masculinized feminine spirit is out of place in regular normie games, let's say. It's to show that Launch is extraordinary just the same way that the rest of the turtle
Hmm.
chills are
But
extraordinary,
it's sort
where
of the two
Oolong's not.
extremes, right? Where Oolong is the least competent and she's the most competent of the group, and neither of them really fit into relaxing because they're kind of attached to bigger ideas than games and relaxing.
Well, also, I mean, it's almost Bulma's will by which Oolong acts to begin with.
Exactly.
And later on, we're gonna see more of that. But okay, so
But anyway, I just wanted to
carnival stuff,
point out
yeah.
this kind of it's like not super relevant to the major themes of what's going on, but at the same time, it's sort of still playing with those
Well, the
images.
reason I wanted to say competence is because it's gonna come up in the next episode. Competence will arise again, and we're gonna
Right.
talk about that. But let's go ahead and move on from the carnival. Nope, not that one. So the match breaks for lunch, and Goku rushes off excitedly for a meal. As the fighters are eating, Tien begins to threaten a server, insulting the quality of the food. How dare you serve me this slop, or something like that. Yamcha calls him out, and they square off, ready to fight right there in the cafeteria. Also, Chiaotzu
Chiaotzu with his chopsticks
just
just
stirs the slop. It does look like slop, I'll admit. However, Roshi intervenes at the last moment, reminding them that this is not the place to fight. The gang then sees that Namu has entered this year. He says he's entered to test his strength and fight Goku once again. An admirable goal. But before we get into Nam too much, Tien and Yamcha square off again for the third time.
so I really like this because this is contrasted with Goku having this delicious meal that he appreciates, and Tien doesn't appreciate the food that they give him, and it looks like he's not getting the same food as him anyway.
Yeah, that's
Judging
true.
by what Chaozu has, and so the I think of Cain and Abel in that sense, where
It's almost
the
my
nourishment,
sacrifice
yeah,
wasn't
like
accepted. I'm
so the
salty.
nourishment I got isn't as good as his nourishment.
Right.
I'm not able to enjoy it. So what's up with the situation? How dare you give me this, right? And so then it's not Goku who stands up to defend that, but it's Yamcha.
Right, and it's Yamcha has to be the one to do it because Goku understands he Goku respects the hierarchy enough and the number one under the heavens to understand that the place to embattle spirits is not in the cafeteria,
Well, not only that, but
not in the place of nourishment.
Goku being someone who respects the hierarchy the way that he does, knows not to complain about the nourishment that he receives from that hierarchy.
Right, but what about standing up for the server, let's say?
Um, First off, Goku is generally distracted by his nourishment. Now, not completely, because Baba was not able to distract him enough to attack him whenever she fed him the nourishment, right? But I think that standing up and defending the servers is something that naturally, I don't know if there's I can't come up with a specific reason for Goku not to, other than him being consumed by his meal, because the real reason that it happens with Yamcha is because it's showing that Yamcha has learned from Master Roshi. Right? This is a fundamental from Master Roshi that's very much appreciating the nourishment that you get for the work that you put into it. That's why they were working the lands to begin with, and that was why that was like a foundation of the training that Yamcha wanted to get from the beginning, right? And so this is a foundational thing.
Well, notice that Roshi's not the one that stops him either. It is Yamcha. And I think it's because it's Yamcha's almost his inexperience, his incompetence that drives him to do this, right? To prove his competence, to and the reason Goku doesn't intervene is because until Tien has done something really that to he can insult, right? He can have these thoughts and he can disrespect the idea of the nourishment because his spirit will be pitted against Goku's and Roshi's here in the tournament, and he let's say it'll be meted out uh for the results of the match.
Also, there's a wisdom in thinking that if Tien is left to act this way without somebody stopping him, he could disqualify himself. And when in reality, that would be the best thing for the tournament.
That's what I mean. And Yamcha wants to fight him,
Wants
right?
to correct him on that path here.
Well, Yamcha wants to fight him because Yamcha has a sense of righteousness. Goku wants to fight him because he's strong. There's a difference there
Right.
that's driving Yamcha to go up to him to begin with. And that's the other thing. It's partially because Yamcha was a bandit, right? He's been reformed. He subordinated himself to Roshi's teaching, realizing that he couldn't make it on his own. And now he's kind of hyper ordinated towards that idea. And that's what, let's say, Roshi might do if he was younger.
Right. What's the lesson that the young can teach somebody is usually with their physicality, you
Right.
know? Whereas the lessons that Roshi teaches to people are through wisdom and um
Ideas.
through ideas. And
Yeah.
so this is sort of like Yamcha realizes that he's in the right to change the way that people act, but he's not a teacher like Roshi is. And so he's acting out of something that's sort of superordinate to
Well,
himself.
it's also not the idea that controlling other people will solve their problems.
Right. Like
Because
there's a wisdom in age knowing that people need to be able to be left to make their own mistakes.
yeah, exactly. And they don't and Yamcha here is trying to intervene to be the good guy almost. And so I like that. I do also like that exchange here. They do square off quite a bit. They're gonna square off, I think, two more times or something before we actually start. But
Yeah, they got to tease it.
yeah, tease it more, tease it more. Um, And so the last thing we need to mention here is Namu. Now, Namu is, like we said, uh, somewhat in the same hierarchy level as Choppa. And so we can kind of guess already just by seeing him that he might not make it to the end of the prelims.
I do want to point out before we talk too much about Namu, the intervention from
Oh,
Roshi
go
to
ahead.
stop the fight, right? Because
Yeah.
this is the corrected version of what Yamcha wanted to do. Yamcha wanting to correct somebody's actions, then Roshi sort of comes in to correct him back towards the right path. It's like that's the difference between Yamcha and Roshi is Roshi knows when to do it and Yamcha doesn't necessarily
Well, it's
know when to
also
do it.
Yamcha's not even directing towards the right path. He's wanting to get them both disqualified by, right,
Well,
disrespecting the idea of
in
the
Yamcha's
hierarchy.
mind, it's like if I beat you up and show you that your way is wrong, then you'll reform.
Yeah. And
And
that's
he doesn't
not.
understand that Tien would not reform from
It's a
that.
battle of ideas and
Yeah.
spirits, not fists.
So, but anyway, yeah, it's
It's almost like Yamcha views Dragon Ball like some Dragon Ball fans view Dragon Ball. Wild.
yeah.
Anyways, um,
But yeah, so Namu is now here, and he says that his reason is now he wants to test his strength and he wants to be able to fight Goku again.
Which we said is an admirable goal. But the only thing that I'm saying by indicating the foreshadowing is that we already saw Choppa get out in the very first round, and he was in ordinate spirit similar to
Hmm.
Nam. And so Nam being here, we have also have an indication of how the stakes have been raised. He made it to the quarterfinals last time, right? And here he is, and we're gonna see how far he gets. So we pretty much just get introduced to him at that point. So the last section here is the second montage of victories, which ends with each new member of the crew being placed into the finals. Just after Roshi wins his placement, the gang hear people calling for a doctor. Nearby, Namu lies unconscious, beaten senseless by Tien. Tien says that Namu's lucky that he couldn't kill him, and that he should have known better than to enter the tournament. Roshi has to hold Goku back from going after Tien for hurting Nam. Afterwards, the gang reunites with the rest of the crew, and when the announcer calls for the fighters to convene, launch fires her gun into the air to clear the crowd and get front row seats. So here, um, that first section of montage, or that second section of montages, right? Basically everyone's placed. The only people we don't see are
Man,
Wolfman,
Beast,
Man
Man,
Wolf,
Wolf.
Pompa, uh, Tien. Do we see Tien and Shiatsu get there?
We are about to see Tien get there.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing Tien get there by beating up Namu. We don't see Chaozu's fight.
Okay, we don't see his fight. Gotcha. And so, we see that Nam has been defeated by Tien. And to say that Tien can grasp the ordination of subordinating oneself to a higher order of being, Tien already knows that. Tien has done that actually with the Crane School. It's just a what do I want to say, a disintegrated idea that the Crane has taught to him.
Right. He's put what he has learned from the Crane Hermit above that hierarchy.
Yeah,
Wrongly.
wrongly, but it's still something that he's able to.
But he can use that
Yeah,
as a bludgeon. And we see that he's an inversion of Goku's fight at the beginning of the episode, where he is fighting someone of that sort of Middle Eastern aesthetic look that could have been the world champion from the last time and he treats him as roughly as he can and says he's lucky I couldn't kill him, whereas Goku says, "Oh, I couldn't go out against him. I would have killed him." Right?
right,
So they have
exactly.
opposite approaches to it. And so Tien knows that he can't kill him, but it's sort of like, well, this rule is stopping me from killing him, but I would.
But I would, right, exactly. It's that outward malice, and as we'll learn later, it that malice is something that will come up again, and that also having that disciplined malice that Tien wields is something that can destroy the idea of a hierarchy to begin with, which is why Nam is just blown away, right? Nam subordinated himself to being number one under the heavens this time, just for his own betterment. Which the idea that disciplined malice exists such that it will try and stop you from doing that can destroy the idea of hierarchies entirely for a person. And so Nam is just blown away. His pupils are gone, right? He can't see anymore. And
He's knocked
so he's
unconscious.
knocked unconscious.
Yeah, and he insults him, and he says, whenever he says that essentially he would have killed him, Goku reacts violently.
Right, because now he's done something, right? I mean, not
See, Goku
respecting
didn't
the
jump
food.
in on
Yeah.
the not respecting the food, but not respecting Namu is different.
Right. Namu is someone who has grown with Goku. In their fight, they both grew to understand somewhat of each other in the episode after the tournament as well with the roaming lake. Is that filler? I don't know, but anyways, it happens and
Right.
it's referenced somewhat. So
It is referenced in this episode with the roaming lake.
that idea and the Goku is more or less he respects Namu's spirit is the idea that its debasement would anger Goku. It's almost the purity of spirit itself that's being tainted by the fact that Tien is wielding malice in this way.
And then he's wielding his ability to interface with the hierarchy in the way that he does in such a way,
Yeah.
because Goku sees that as sort of sacrosanct, like it's a
Yes.
sacrilegious thing to do.
Right.
And uh, Goku's unconscious reaction would be to try to take him out of the ability to fight in this tournament, because he's going to debase that for other people. So Goku has to be stopped from going to fight him now.
And so Roshi has to stop him. And that's the limit, right? So we've seen Yamcha's limit. He already went up. We've seen Goku's limit. Now, does Roshi have a limit? We'll see. We'll see. Last thing that we see here is Launch firing her gun, clearing out the spot for everyone to watch. And this is the way to say, like we were earlier, that the masculinized feminine spirit is one, like Mother Nature, which clears the way for the opening of consciousness, which is how these side characters really interact with what's happening on stage, is they're becoming conscious of the things that the characters in the ring represent.
Yeah, no, we talked, I think, in the last episode or the episode before, where I think it was the last episode where Roshi couldn't see over the wall to see into the preliminaries, and then had to be he had to turn into Jackie Chun to be able to see to even witness what the preliminaries are, witness the wisdom in these ideas coming up
Yes.
against each other. And so the idea being that Launch is such a projection of competence and consciousness that she guides people into consciousness. She literally clears the way for them to witness these ideas coming up against each other, to gain that wisdom, right? And she goes above and beyond the hierarchy itself, like cuts through it.
Uh-huh.
And so the hierarchy, let's say, is pop guns and teddy bear prizes, but she occupies one where it's guns and money. Like, she gets to the point. And
Guns and
so she
money.
literally just carves through all of this, all of the frills, all of the facade in front of them, and takes them straight to be able to see what they need to see from this.
And that's what we're going to see next time. I think that's a good place to end it off.
Yeah.
All right. So if you liked what you heard, please give us a like. Subscribe. We've noticed we have a lot of new viewers. Give us a subscribe so you can keep up with the episodes. Click that bell icon to be notified of our latest uploads. We upload on Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays on Rumble. Be sure to give us a subscribe. We will add our Spotify stuff very soon, probably in the next week or so. So be on the lookout for that. We'll probably add it to all this interface here as well. Anything else you want to add, Brock?
No, I think we got a lot more out of this episode than I was expecting.
Very well. I think that's a good place to stop then. Well, I'm your host on the left, Owl,
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
and we hope you guys have a good night.